A lot has happened over the weekend in India-US relations. Trump suddenly woke up, saw some pictures from the SCO summit, and just like an ex who suddenly realizes how good their lover was after seeing some pictures of them laughing with their enemies, he posted a picture of Modi, Xi and Putin on Truth Social with this caption: "Looks like we've lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together." Classic Trump. Later, he also hailed India-US ties, said that he is always going to be a friend of Modi. He just does not like what India is doing right now. Translation: Trump is jealous, but India wasn't going to give him the last word. Modi responded with a tweet acknowledging that India and US have strong relations. Strong, yes, but how strong are they right now? While Trump is desperately trying to mend ties, or at least acting like he wants to mend ties, his own aides seem to have missed the memo. First up, Peter Navarro. He's Trump's trade advisor and seems to think India is stealing American jobs. Navarro responded on X, a call to slap tariffs on outsourcing and foreign remote work. His source, conservative commentator Jack Posobiec, who says that foreign nations should pay for the privilege of providing services remotely to the US the same way as goods. Yep, outsourcing is apparently a crime now. If implemented, this would fundamentally disrupt global outsourcing. Costs for providing IT and back office services to the US firms will skyrocket. That's bad news for Indian companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, Cognizant, and HCL Tech, all of which rely heavily on H-1B visas and whose greatest export to America is, well, Indian tech talent. And why does Navarro support this? Because he believes that Indians are stealing jobs from Americans, which is causing unemployment in the US. That's right, outsourcing is now a threat to national security. But Navarro's anti-India stance doesn't stop there. He also has been at the forefront of accusing India of fueling the Russia-Ukraine war. Recently, he posted that India's high tariffs cost US jobs and that India's purchase of Russian oil profits Russia's war machine. And he even called Russia-Ukraine war Modi's war. Of course, he was fact-checked by Grok, which pointed out that India's oil imports are driven by energy security, don't breach sanctions, and even called out the US for importing Russian commodities. Well, it also said that that's clear double standards. Elon Musk, who has previously called Navarro a moron, jumped in to defend the fact-check, adding fuel to the fire. Next, we have Howard Lutnick, US Commerce Secretary, who claimed that India will say sorry and make a deal with Trump because its businesses can't survive without the US market. Well, here's what you should know. India keeps its allies close and builds long-term relationships, unlike the US. India's Commerce Minister confirmed that talks are underway with 50 countries to buy Indian goods, especially those that are hit by US tariffs. Meanwhile, the EU realizes that India's critical role is in mediating the Russia-Ukraine crisis because Putin actually talks to Modi. Trade talks are heating up and India's influence is growing. And what exactly is India apologizing for? Nothing illegal. Buying Russian oil at prices capped by the West itself is totally within international norms. In fact, back in 2022, the US itself applauded India's efforts to stabilize energy markets by purchasing Russian oil. Let's look at the reality. The US hasn't fully sanctioned Russian oil because Europe and Ukraine need it. If India suddenly stops buying discounted Russian oil, prices would skyrocket, supply chains would crumble, and inflation would soar. Ironically, the biggest winners would be US oil producers cashing in on higher prices. India's refining hub status is no joke. In 2023 to 24, it supplied around 15% of Europe's diesel imports, and it's the largest supplier to Ukraine as well. Cutting off Russian oil would disrupt global fuel markets while helping the US's exporters of oil. Now, the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he added more spice by accusing India and China of supporting Russia's war and suggested harsher sanctions could bring Putin to the negotiating table. Now, let's be honest here. Trump's tariffs have only made Russian oil more cheaper for India. Instead of cutting purchases, India has only increased them to keep inflation manageable at home. Trump's new sanction plan, which is the phase 2 sanctions on Russia, whether directly targeted at Russia or at those who are trading with Russia, is still murky. But one thing is clear. The West has imposed over 1,600 sanctions on Russia, frozen billions in assets, and cut access to tech. Yet, Russia's economy grew by 3.6% in 2024. Why? Because Russia adapted. Oil sales shifted, trade is now done in rubles and yuan, commodity exports are weaponized, and Europe's dependence on Russian gas was exploited. Even the 18th round of EU sanctions has not broken Russia's economy. So here's the reality check. Sanctions haven't forced Putin to the table. They have pushed Russia to decouple from the West and deepen relations with countries that see the West as a bully. And as of India, it's high time that US realizes how crucial India is, not just as a market, but as a peace broker. With its global partnerships, energy supplies, and strategic influence, India isn't going anywhere. However, India has to be cautious before it hails India-US partnership or friendship again, as the signals are mixed. And that's not how long-term relationships work. Unless the signal is clear, it's merely a situationship. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments. And like, share and subscribe to ET Now for more such news and views.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.